Hi, good evening, and welcome to Circle6. My name's Richard Francis Jones, and some of you I've met before and spoken to before. And what I usually want to say at this point is why we have this venue. And it is so much to do with how lucky we are to be in this beautiful building and in this very special place within the building, which was originally an exhibition space. So we were very keen when we put our studio in here that we could share this space and invite people to talk about design, talk about architecture, talk about culture and other issues in a space that was intended to be kind of semi-public. So, welcome to Circle6. And what I would like to do now is to hand over to Corey, one of our First Nations designers, who will do an acknowledgement of country.
Hey everyone. Always pleased to acknowledge the Gadi people who are the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on today. The Gadi have always been and continue to be caretakers for our land, sea and sky countries. I would like to pay our respects to elders past and present, who are the holders of knowledge and keepers of songlines. In the spirit of this evening's talk, I want to specifically acknowledge the women of the 26 different clans who make up the Eora Nation. These strong women were and still are the matriarchs of a society where women are equal to men and humans are equal to nature. Sadly, we now live in a modern patriarchal world where this type of equality in humanity no longer exists, and we are all the worse for it.
Thank you, Corey. So it's a very special event for us today because we have Ses here to speak to us from Leichhardt Women's Community Health Centre, who we have a long working partnership with, and we're currently working on a new vision for their space. And I think almost everyone in the studio here has an awareness of this and realises this might be possibly our smallest job, but it is our most precious job and one that we're very excited about and looking forward to. So, spearheading a lot of our work is Alicia McCarthy, Philip Pham, Daniel Burke have been working on it, many other people in the studio, and also Tamara. And I would like Tamara to come up now and introduce Ses.
Hi everyone, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our very, very special guest today, Ses. Dr Ses Salmond brings extensive clinical research, organisational, strategic and collaborative expertise to the Chief Executive Officer position at Leichhardt Women's Community Health Centre. Her depth of experience includes being a naturopathic clinician for over 30 years, 29 of which at Leichhardt Women's Community Health Centre, before becoming manager in June 2022 and Chief Executive Officer in October 2025. She completed a PhD-based clinical trial in 3 teaching hospitals in New South Wales on using silymarin and antioxidants to treat chronic hepatitis C. Ses is a firm believer in empowering women to lead healthy, safe and fulfilling lives. She champions diversity and inclusion at all levels of the organisation and encourages staff, board and stakeholder involvement in the strategic direction of the centre. Ses values partnership, networking and collaboration to provide the best possible healthcare, support and education in response to and informed by community needs. She's an avid reader, a swimmer, a tennis player and enjoys game nights and Pilates. Please join me in welcoming Ses.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and Corey, to your really heartfelt woman, heartfelt acknowledgement of women in the matriarchal society of First Nations peoples. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. So thank you very much for that introduction. And for the invitation to speak with you tonight. I'm really delighted to be here, so thank you. So this is the building that we are currently in. It is a 2-storey terrace at Leichhardt, and we've run out of room in the inn. So we actually have been very grateful for fjcstudio's long association with us in terms of, and it was like a couple of years ago, wasn't it? A couple of years ago, in terms of doing some design work to make the building more fit for purpose. So it's just lovely to be part of this partnership. This, sorry. I just wanted to talk a little bit about placing kind of the centre so you have a feel for what the centre does and then move more into the building and what we're hoping to achieve by that. So for us, our vision is that all women in our community are healthy, empowered, safe and thriving. Our purpose is to provide high quality professional care, education and support to women who are marginalised and vulnerable in the community. And we want to do that in a space that is actually safe and inclusive. Our values are that we are client-centred. Everything we do is for the women who walk through the door, and their needs inform what we do. And it's a trauma-informed practice, so understanding that there is transgenerational trauma, systemic racism, abuse, like lots of those things are going to impact someone's life as they walk through our doors, and we want them to find a safe and welcoming space. For us, it's actually validating women's stories through empathy, trust and safety. We need to listen to their story and then work out what they need and work towards that. And that's how we work ethically and respectively, because we have that feminist lens and understanding both colonisation and patriarchy and the impacts of women that we see. It is about embracing diversity and inclusivity. And I think that you're only as good as your referral list and your collaborators. Like, each of us need connection, and we actually build stronger communities together. And it's about championing social justice, equality and equity. So we're very proud of the fact that Leichhardt Women's Community Health Centre was the first women's health centre in Australia, and we got funded in 1974 by the Whitlam government through their Community Health Partnership program. We're an accredited service, we're run by women and for women, and we take that holistic approach and preventative approach to kind of healthcare. So we're trying to improve kind of long-term health problems. And really, knowledge is power. So we're wanting to actually give the women the knowledge and the information that they need to make the decisions that are right-sized for them and have autonomy over their own bodies. And we welcome trans and gender diverse persons. We are a public benevolent institution and registered with ACNC and have had deductible gift recipient status since 2001. So what we provide are general practitioner clinics, women's health nurse clinics, and we do a lot of that in the community, and again it's going to marginalised, under-screened populations and providing a service where it's most needed. Acupuncture and naturopathy clinics, drug and alcohol counselling, including tobacco, or women who are affected by drug and alcohol use of someone near them and it's having an impact on their life. We offer counselling, particularly around relationship issues, domestic and family violence, sexual violence, And we have 2 specialised counsellors from Full Stop Australia that are working with adult survivors of child sexual assault. We have a statewide service for women partners of men who have sex with men, and we have health education groups like yoga, art therapy, dance and movement. And we have a specialised Vietnamese health educator who runs lots of social support groups within the community. So for us, it's always been about prioritising access to women who most need it. So we have women on no or low income, including those who are homeless or facing food insecurity. And no one's turned away if they don't actually have income or they don't have a Medicare card. You know, our ethos is that we need to support women in the community no matter what. Women who have been abused, we've mentioned before, domestic and family violence, sexual violence, non-fatal strangulation. We prioritise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women or First Nations women. Culturally and linguistically diverse women, including refugees and those on interim visas. We're working with women who are living with really chronic and complex health conditions, and women, as I've mentioned before, that have experienced complex trauma and transgenerational trauma, and plus our women partners of men who have sex with men service. Just wanted to give you a snapshot of kind of like the women that we see in terms of how many. So in our women's health program, last year we saw 7,600 7,600 occasions of service to 1,800 clients. And what's really interesting is that people don't just come in with one issue. On average, every woman who presented to the centre had 14 issues that they were dealing with. In terms of financial position, the majority of those that we see are on a pension, a healthcare card, they're a student, they have no personal income, or they're in casual employment. In terms of allied health, we had 840 occasions of service for naturopathy and acupuncture, counselling 540 episodes, and the doctors and nurses saw 1,700 clients. So I'd just like to give you a bit of history about the Lisa McDonald Learning Fund. And that's the connection between FJcstudio and Leichhardt Women's Community Health Centre. So Dr Lisa McDonald worked as a GP for Leichhardt for 5 years from 1998 to 2002. And she just had such empathy and compassion for the clients that she was actually treating, but had this real holistic, integrative approach and passion for learning. But it was really her gentleness and her kindness and her dedication to clients, which was just remarkable. She believed in empowering clients, was very passionate about self-care, particularly for younger women, Aboriginal women and disadvantaged women. And she was at her happiest when she worked at Leichhardt. Sadly, she passed away, but Lisa's legacy lives on with the generous donation that actually Leichhardt attracts from FJcstudio called the Lisa McDonald Learning Fund. So how this makes a huge difference to what we do at Leichhardt is that the distribution of those funds provide education opportunities for clients, helping them through courses or buying laptops or whatever they need so that they can actually have a fulfilling life because they're gaining gainful employment, professional development, mentoring, or how clients can best be supported directly by staff. And recent example is we gave a laptop to someone and they said, no one has ever done something like this to me before. Thank you very, very much. So it's just that thing of like just the kindness and something that someone needs for them to actually finish their studies, and they were actually doing a design course. So through the Lisa McDonald Learning Fund, we've been able to expand the reach and the diversity of the services that we can actually offer to the community. And that allows us to deliver better health outcomes, and particularly for those who are below the poverty line, First Nations women, and those escaping domestic and family violence. So in the last calendar year, the Lisa McDonald Learning Fund helped 13 clients to be provided with ongoing free medical treatment, medications and procedures. 20 clients received numerous food vouchers throughout the year. And we were able to put on a course, getting some outside help to structure it, a 9-week kind of resilience course about healing and recovery from trauma and abuse. And the client feedback from that was phenomenal, and we'll be running that again, and we've already got a waiting list for that group. And also we ran an art therapy group for DV survivors. It allowed us to do staff training in HIV, responding to sexual violence in adults, coercive control, non-fatal strangulation, and vicarious trauma. So we need to care for the people that actually care for people. Now on to the building. So the Women's Health and Resources Foundation is a public benevolent charity that actually owns the buildings at Leichhardt Women's Community Health Centre and Liverpool Women's Health Centre. Now, they kindly offer us below market rent so that we can put more money into direct service provision for the clients we see. But the money to make that initial purchase came from the Women's Liberation Movement and Women's Liberation House. And it's nice for us to know that that's our roots of where we got funding from. It was women advocating for change. It was women from the Women's Liberation Movement that actually knew that there was gender bias in medicine and that women weren't getting access and timely access to the services they need, or if they were settling and they were displaced from another country, they were put on a benzodiazepine rather than connecting them with kind of services that they needed to actually find that this was actually a safe place for them. So in the same year that we got funded in 1974, the Rape Crisis Centre in New South Wales got funded, and Elsie's Women's Refuge got funded. And that was just so significant and impactful, and it's just made such a difference. So for us, it's actually knowing our roots and honouring the women who championed that before, so we can be champions now, but we always honour the women that have actually gone before us. So it was incredibly exciting that we'd spent, quite a while working with fjcstudio, and we knew that we couldn't send, we had to send counsellors home. We didn't have enough room in the building. We said, would you mind working from home? We don't actually have a room that you can actually see a client from. It was just desperate for us, we needed to actually make change and make it happen. So it was so good that when we received a call, because I'd met with someone from the Minister's office a year before saying, we're desperate for room, these are the health issues that women are facing, and if you do have any spare money, it'd be great if you could help us, with a building. So it was wonderful when we actually got a call going, do you still need that $2 million for your building upgrade? And it was like, hell yeah. So it was lovely that the Prime Minister made the announcement of the $2.07 million for the building upgrade at Leichhardt, and that happened in April last year. And Liz Carpenter from fjcstudio was present at that announcement, which was lovely. And so we got very excited by that and thought, well, we better meet up with fjcstudio again and get things progressing if there's actually a chance of this money coming towards us. So we were invited to apply for a major and local infrastructure grant for the money that had been made in that federal announcement. So we worked with fjcstudio, and thanks heaps to Richard and to Alicia, and I'm sure there were others behind the scene that actually worked tirelessly on getting that together for us. And we were able to submit that on the 4th of December. But we do have Councillor Philippa Scott in the audience tonight, and I just want to do a shout out to Philippa, because the federal government would not give the money to us directly because we're a non-government organisation, so we needed a project sponsor. And it was Philippa, who has always been a champion of Leichhardt Women's Community Health Centre, who made that happen. So I just want to thank you personally for doing that, because that's how we're going to attract the funds, because you're supporting us, so thank you. So in terms of what the project will deliver for us, we won't need to send counsellors home. We will actually, instead of having 2 counselling rooms, we will have 4. We haven't been able to do the full range of kind of medical procedures that we would like because our surgery rooms are really small. And so we need appropriately sized clinic rooms to do so, and to have a dedicated dispensary area, improved accessibility. Our accessibility is shite. There are steep stairs at the front of the building. If you have any mobility or disability concerns or differing ability, you need to ring a bell at the back gate, and we come and unlock the gate and you come in through the back. Now that isn't welcoming, and we need to change that. We so need to change that. And the vision that fjcstudio have of completely turning around the orientation of the building, and so coming in at street level, will do just that, and you'll see that in another slide. We need a flexible community health education space. At the moment, we need to rent lots of venues because we don't have enough room in our group room to actually run the community education sessions that we would like. This would provide us with enhanced security and privacy and enhanced efficiency, and the upgraded finishes and fixtures would really support and show women that they are valued when they come into the building. So as I've mentioned before, it will allow us to expand essential services and offer new services. It will increase our community inreach and outreach, retain and support dedicated staff, but most importantly, provide a secure and equitable centre that embodies dignity, inclusion and empowerment. And the building will then represent in its excellence, the excellence in the clinical care that we offer, rather than a building that's just making do and was a home and not fit for purpose for a health centre. So for us, this means that we actually have 3 large-sized clinic rooms downstairs, and we have a lockable dispensary as well, and that we needed a kitchen. A kitchen is a place where you gather and can also meet and run workshops. But most importantly, we will have a lift. So we won't need to scramble and go, okay, we've got someone with limited mobility issues, they can't go upstairs, have we got a room available that we can see them downstairs? Can we see them in a surgery or in the group room? We will actually have fully functional, accessible rooms to all. And making the group room multi-purpose and all one level, because it's actually got lots of levels, well, 2 levels, or 3, and it doesn't make it safe for people. So then upstairs we will actually have 4 counselling rooms and then a lift upstairs, which is so exciting. But I think one of the great features kind of is actually reorientating the building so that we actually have access that's on ground level. And I love the suggestion from FJC Studio that they bring nature on top of the roof, on top of the reception area and the courtyard that's inviting and brings people in. So, yeah. We just thought we could put a petition in the group room and make another surgical room, and Richard said, no, Ses, you can't do that. That's not a good vision. So it's lucky that you have people that know what they're doing, that are actually guiding you in a process when you're just trying to actually make something fit into kind of a space that was never designed to be a health centre in the beginning. So in terms of the federal grant monies, we needed to provide a contingency fund, so they would not, in the grant application, allow us to move forward unless we actually had some contingency. That's really hard for an NGO that gets limited money to try and find money when there might be a delay in the money that we're getting from the federal government to kind of progress the project. So the Lisa McDonald Learning Fund Reserve has, at the end of November, had $280,000 in it. And FJC Studio and the Leichhardt Women's Community Health Centre Board of Management agreed that we would actually allocate those funds to a contingency fund should it be needed within the build if there was, you know, something that was discovered in an old building, which I'm sure there will be. And then the Women's Health and Resources Foundation, who is our landlord, have agreed that they could give us an $80,000 loan for the length of the build, but we would need to pay that back at the end of the build. So it's really tight for us. So, you know, like, we're very grateful for any and all help that we can get. Now, these are the milestones that FJC Studio put together. So it was around the 16th of February that I got a call from the Department of Infrastructure in Canberra, and they said, hi, I'm one of the assessors for the grant that you're putting in for the Leichhardt building upgrade. Just wanting to make sure that Inner West Council is going to be your project sponsor. And I said, yes, they are. And they said, look, there'll probably be a 10-week turnaround. They had 200 applications, so in the middle of February they were saying there might be a 10-week turnaround to actually get back to us to actually, like, approve the project. So that's as much as I know around kind of like a timeline. But this might be helpful, and this is what we put in our grant application, thanks to FJC Studio, that kind of 100% of the design will be complete. So it was very exciting, kind of, I think it was the day after I'd got the call from the Department of Infrastructure, Federal. I got a call from Alicia, and she said, oh, do you think that we could get some surveyors in the building tomorrow? It's like, well, okay, let's see if we can do that. And so we did that, and they came the next day. So it's kind of like that progressing of things to get to the DA application. So you can see we're very agile. I'd just like you to note that. So then there'll be, once we actually hear from the federal government, then there'll be a tendering process at the end of June. Hopefully an award will be contracted out middle of July. Then Leichhardt will be, we'll have to relocate. So just putting it out there, if you know of any buildings, got some spare space in yours, you wouldn't mind housing us for a little while, be very grateful. And then construction will commence in middle of September. The whole construction would be completed within a year, and we would be back in a whiz-bang new building on the end of October 2027. But none of this would have been possible without the support that we actually get from FJC Studio. So not only have they done the pro bono design work that we could actually put those initial design plans in with the grant application, their commitment to kind of community partnership and helping the women we serve with their generous donation just makes such a difference to us. So I can't wait, because we can do more when we get this expansion of space and a building that is fit for purpose and welcoming. Thank you.
We now get to ask Ses some questions. I might kick us off with the first one. How important do you think architecture is in helping to create healing environments and support services for women?
Well, it's crucial. So, it's crucial. You know, like, we need help to actually... Our values align in terms of, I think, where fjcstudio is and Leichhardt in terms of wanting open spaces to be safe, to be inclusive. But because we're not design experts, we don't know how to actually make that happen. But if the things that I've seen that fjcstudio, like Liverpool Library, like just beautiful design, because then that actually means that women are valued. They're coming into a space that is actually open, it's fit for purpose, it's welcoming, rather than a rabbit warren and you're not quite sure as you meander around the building where things are. Like, I think when there's openness and lightness and a space has been well designed, then that shows that women deserve a space and they're valued and they're not hidden, or they're not just in a old home that actually isn't, while that's welcoming, it's not really what we need in terms of them coming into kind of like a clinic where they feel valued and feel seen.
So there are benefits in the fact that it is a house and people feel like it's something familiar and comfortable, but then you struggle with lots of other limitations, and culturally it can be seen as sort of a negative thing, the design of the space, and could kind of give a feeling of not being inclusive. Would you agree?
I think that is really true. Like, I think the fact of coming into a home, on some level it is familiar and it's warm, and for people who have been abused institutionally, not going into something that actually is such a kind of cold and clinical space might suit some people, but actually not having spaces where nature comes into a building is not necessarily culturally safe or inclusive. And so I think that any help we can get to make that expansive and more welcoming and inclusive to all is really what we need. And that's what we're saying, and that's part of our values, that we're inclusive to all. But we need a space that actually reflects that, and currently it doesn't.
Thank you. Does anyone else have some questions for Ses?
Hi, Ses. My name's Elisa. Sorry. I'm curious about the age range of the women that you see. I just wondered if you could talk about, it sounds that you have a very broad range, but I'm just curious if there's you tend to see people that are younger or older, or if there's anything there that you could share.
So we see a lot of younger Aboriginal women through a partnership that we have with Midgebury Youth Resource Centre. So whenever any of their young Koori women need a warm referral or a safe space to get some medical or nursing attention, then the CEO will just ring up and go, I've got a young Koori woman, could you see them today? And so we move heaven and earth to actually see if we can actually help in those situations, because we know that there are so many barriers to kind of particularly Koori women getting access to the services they need in a timely manner. We do have a lot of Vietnamese women, and we're very excited that some of our leaflets, and also Arabic, so we've translated our leaflets into Vietnamese and Arabic, again, trying to make that more successful. We do actually, and accessible, we do have a lot of older women, so it's almost like we've grown up together. And so, you know, like for us, being able to kind of make it more accessible for them would be really important. Yeah.
You mentioned something about how the average client has 14 different treatments. I'm really curious about how that must work across your staff, and how that kind of dynamic works across all the different professions that are within your practice.
So we really, it's really important to us, we're a multidisciplinary wraparound support service for women. So whatever they need or is identified, if we've got the capacity to kind of see them or make referrals internally, we will. If we don't have capacity, then we would refer them to a sister service or another service that might be able to do that. But there are times when we have case conferences, if we're actually seeing a woman with multiple issues and she's seeing multiple practitioners within the centre, we want to know that we're doing the right thing by her and get her consent and make sure that we're all on the same page, or is there something that we might have missed that is actually really important and front and centre for her healthcare.
It's probably more an architect's question. I was just wondering whether there are any historic precedents for the studio in terms of hospital care or health centre care that is responsive to the kind of issues you've outlined that you would have found as precedents in terms of the research you were doing on this project?
I might hand that over to Richard.
I had a question actually, but so what I would say is that there's a poverty of precedents, and I think you can actually look in the wrong places when you look in more institutional and established models. And I think where, I think it was an interesting question that Tamara was asking about, how does a house present itself, good and bad, right? It's Victorian terrace, it's a kind of, it's not really reflective of the values of today, let alone the centre. But I think you need to look more towards community buildings that actually, embed themselves in a community, that create spaces which are a little bit more open. So we had quite a lot of experience designing, community libraries, community centres that provide outreach services. We did a library in Maui, for example, and that incorporates a nursing centre, a counselling centre, and also flexible community rooms. But it's not labelled as such. The building, it's actually a proud building in the community that brings everybody there, but actually provides these services. So I think these slightly more subtle and more hybrid typologies that are close to community are the ones to look at. But I had a question. I don't want to talk too much. But I do have a question, which is, so 74, the centre came out of a very strong women's liberation movement, the kind of vision of the Whitlam government, and it's done amazing things over those 52 years. But also, and I went to the 50 anniversary thing, and there was also a celebration that it's still here.
Yes.
Right. And I know how every year it's hard, right? And why is it so hard? I mean, it's clearly a centre which is providing desperate and important work directly, so direct to the community. And 50 years is a long way. Why is it so hard?
Thanks, Richard. Look, I think that I just think that there's gender bias. I think there's medical misogyny. I think there's patriarchy. I just don't think there's respect for people. Like, the definition of feminism is that women want to be equal to men. Well, I don't think men are having a great time either at the moment. But actually, if we actually all work together for humanity, for safe spaces, for respect, I think if there was genuine kind of kindness, and that would bring communities together. And I think that when we are divided or individualistic, we can't have that vision of bringing communities together and being connected. And it is hard when you feel that kind of things are going backwards. But for me, it's kind of like it's so important to kind of champion and honour the women that have gone before. And I do my bit to kind of throw a pebble in a pond and try and make a difference. And that's what the ethos of the centre is. It's like, what can we do today that can save a woman's life or make a difference in a woman's life today? So I think that we just bring it back to what we can do in this given moment. But I think if there was genuine respect and humanity to every person, then there wouldn't be division and angst. And I hope for that day when we can actually just see people for who they are and value them and look at what they need and how we can work together as a community to make that happen. Because we just as women want to be, rightful citizens and kind of like participate and actually be celebrated rather than actually scared that kind of we might die through domestic and family violence or non-fatal strangulation. Like, everyone has a right to feel safe. And so that's why there are centres like us and domestic violence centres. But I'm longing for the day when they're not needed, when actually, so.
Hi, my name's Bridget, and thank you so much for sharing your inspiring vision. I don't want to take away for the immediate inspiring vision, but I'm curious, are there any nations, cultures, cities around the world where you've seen a model that would take your women's centre to another level? Is there any country doing this differently?
I'd have to ask, maybe there are... I know that there are similar centres to us kind of worldwide, but I haven't studied that to be able to do your question justice. But I just think that, globally, if we can all work together, then that's going to help the advancement of all peoples. Yeah.
Anyone else? Actually, I have another question. In a city like ours, is there sufficient help like what the centre provides women for men, particularly men that might be in those women's lives that are affecting the lives of those women? Is there sufficient help in our sort of wider city for that?
I don't know a lot about that because that's not my specialty, but I know that there are really innovative programs for men or men shared and kind of like organisations that are actually, and also work that's done in schools around consent. Like, I think everyone's trying to do their bit, But I just actually think until a woman's life is really valued, then women will keep dying. When we had the King hit, when a man got hit and down to the pavement, they immediately changed the law and someone got 10 years. Well, women who are actually beaten don't get that. So until women are seen as being, of equal value, we will always face this. But if we can engender kind of respect for one another and kindness to one another, then I'm hoping that that will change. Yeah. Do you want to add anything, TL? TL's the vice chairperson of Leichhardt Women's Community Health Centre, an architect and a social worker, and I'm handing over to her.
Thanks, Ses. I've tried to live up to that. So, from the question about men's services, they're out there. You're right. The thing with and Corey, you've hit it on the nail when you said that this is a patriarchal society. But with that comes male toxicity, and that means that men don't reach out when there's issues, when there's mental health, there's complications, there's depression, all that in life. So there are other services, but it's mainly targeted. And I know that the men's suicide line is a very important one, and also groups like SAMS, which is the survivors of child sexual abuse for men specific only. So that's out there for them to access, and that means casework, counselling and applying for redress and victim services and things like that. I'm curious because with the refugees out there, you see a lot more women or non-binary refugees, but there's not a lot of men refugees. Have you noticed that for homeless people? Yeah? So then I went and looked and found out that there are, but they're not as well promoted. But the point I'm getting at is there are services for men they're looking at, but it's very targeted and it's very, and it's more in the, on this perspective of mental health and supporting these people, reaching out and connecting with community. So that's a main stream that I'm going down that way. I have a question for Ses, actually, and I'm really, I've been dying to ask the questions. So my question for Ses is, I'm sure that with all the people that come through to receive services, the 7,000 capture services, there's a way of capturing client experience survey, isn't there? Yes. Or is that a mandatory at the end of service, or people just dropped in and put a note in the box, so like recommendation box or something like that? And if you do have that, are there any that are memorable for you that you can share with the group here? But secondly, have they said anything about the building in particular from the client's point of view?
Wow, thanks, Teal. So yes, for us it's really important to get kind of client and community and stakeholder feedback about kind of the services we're delivering and how we actually do that. So we do have patient surveys. I think it's just really like consistently it will be that they feel welcomed into the space, and I think that that could be the people actually that we have in the centre that are actually doing that welcoming, because a lot of the feedback is that they actually feel welcome and safe in the space. So it'll be nice when there's a building that actually really reflects that. I'm trying to think of the other part of your question. Oh yeah. So for me, it's really, we will consistently get kind of like letters from women who will just actually say, you saved my life, you were there when no one else was there for me, and now I actually value myself and I'm now doing this. So it's really nice when you actually see someone who might have been homeless, they might have been escaping domestic and family violence, and they're now, in safe, secure accommodation, and they're now working and they're supporting their family and they're safe. So for me, they're the most memorable, because it's kind of like, that you've made a difference, and it's been so important that that woman has actually taken the time to actually write that note and just say how important and meaningful that was to her.
Thank you.
I thought I'd ask a question with Councillor Scott's presence here noted as well. Do you find that there are too many statutory guardrails with respect to state and federal and local that get in the way of delivering of your services? And is there I'm not a constituent, by the way, all disclosure. Is there more that can be done at that local level in terms of advocacy or property securing or some other level that maybe bridges the gap between state and local issues?
So you're asking me, or are you asking Philippa? Philippa, do you want to have a go?
Hi everyone, I'm Philippa Scott from Inner West Council. Had absolutely no idea that I would be answering any questions when I came to listen to the amazing Ses Salmond talk this evening, and I can't tell you how honoured the Inner West Council is to be playing a small part in the incredible work that Ses does. Are there too many regulatory restrictions on beautifully architecturally designed community health centres? Yes, absolutely. There's no question about that, and I think that at a local government level and also at a state government level, we are really cognisant of needing to transform the way that planning is done in New South Wales to address not only the sort of barriers that emerge in creating beautiful civic buildings like Ses and fjcstudios want to do, but also, you know, in the enormous housing shortage that we have across this city, which is leading to some of the reasons why women are attending Ses's centre. So, you know, we are absolutely aware that it's an issue that we need to tackle. We're doing our best. Introduced a big rezoning plan for the whole Inner West that will will also transform the way that land use is able to be sort of realised, not just for housing, but also for great community buildings like Ses's also. And I think we're all aware of it. We're really trying hard, but there's a lot of legacy there.
Ses, would you like to add to that? No?
That was pretty good.
That's okay.
Thank you. I'm just curious, how do women find you? Is it like local Inner West Council women? Is it referrals from GPs? Do women do research and come from other areas to find you? Are you advertising?
All of the above and more. So we have a website, Facebook page, and I think that there are a lot of GP referrals to our service and community organisations. So it's really important to kind of work with community partners to kind of help women find us. Word of mouth, a lot of word of mouth of people. It's one of the questions that we actually ask, you know, how have you heard about us? And so whether it's the website or word of mouth or a friend or a health professional. So there are numerous ways that women find us, which is good.
Thank you, Ses. My name's Chris, and it's wonderful to hear about all the support and the help that you provide. I'm just thinking in the context of like a family environment with domestic violence, and you support women. What about children who are often witness to this? How do they get help as well?
That's such a good question because it does affect everyone who's part of domestic and family violence. ANROS, which is a national body that does research on violence against women, has actually made, and I think it might even be a federal strategy, that children need to be front and centre. And I think that that's just so justified in terms of the trauma that they experience and how that actually needs to be attended to. So that's definitely on kind of like the federal and state agenda, that children and those in that family situation. And I've just gotten, because it is so impactful. You know, I saw a client whose husband was actually strangling the mother, and it was the 13-year-old son that actually dragged his father off the mother. And if he hadn't done that, she would have died. So it is so impactful that they actually get school counselling and they get access to services, because that is like deeply impactful, and they also need, everyone is affected by violence. It's lateral, it's every direction, and everyone needs to be addressed.
Thanks, Ses. I'll hand it over to Richard.
Thank you, Ses. And look, let me just say a big thank you to you in the centre. I think, you know, your management and care that you bring to how the funds from the Lisa McDonald Fund are distributed is a tribute to you, and most of all a tribute to her, I think. Absolutely. And you know, every year I kind of get a letter from Ses telling me what you've spent money on. And, you know, it makes me cry every year, I have to say, because you realise how, in a way, tragically little has to be done to change someone's life. So, you know, it's amazing work that the centre does, but at the same time, hearing you talk about it tonight makes you realise the scale, I think, and the complexity and the depth of the issue that, you know, a new laptop, a course, or some immediate care isn't going to solve. And I think in terms of, you know, design and architecture, I think it is that care that can be communicated through that you provide. You provide the care in a very direct way, but also an environment through the way it's made can communicate that care and can make someone realise that they're valued, they're lifted up, that this is a special place, and that enormous care and, in a way, love has been put into making this place for them. So we're going to try and do that on a budget. I was getting nervous when you were showing the program that said FJC on all of that. I thought, that looks like one of our programs. I did. Do we have 26 or 27? Anyway, so look, it's been inspiring for us, I think, to work with you and everyone at the centre, and a real privilege. And we look forward to taking a really amazing step with you and with help from everybody. And thank you for speaking tonight.